Good evening. I'm calling this special meeting of the Woodcreek City Council to order. Please rise. Thank you. And I'd like to end the moment of silence with a plea for us all to work hard to bring our city together and work together for Woodcreek. The pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor
the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. And if we can call the roll, please.
Mayor Rasko,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun. Here. Councilmember Brizendine.
Here.
Councilmember Grummett.
Here.
Councilmember Hines.
Here.
Councilmember Pulley.
Here. Great. We have a quorum. And
Mayor, can I remind everybody, we saw the sign at the one of our sister cities. Please speak into the microphone. Please.
yes. Yes, indeed. There are no public comments at this time.
There was one.
From I mean, I've got the written public comment.
No public comments.
No public comments. Okay, great. We do have a written public comment. It says, since incorporation, the city government has been a mayor-council form of a general law municipality. The statute authorized the mayor as the CEO in charge of administration as well as other duties. Unfortunately, our current mayor has refused to comply with the statutory duties. Therefore, we three mayors are filing our objections as follows. We object to agenda items 1 through 11. We object to the mayor's new process of preparing the agenda outside the normal guidance of the city staff. The use of a Microsoft and/or other program allows multiple council members to collaborate and discuss items, including present and future items. They have personal authorship and rank items for consideration. This involvement is in joint planning by multiple council members is a violation of the Open Meetings Act and local government code statutes. We object to the mayor's reassignment and transfer of statutory CEO duties and responsibilities in violation of local government code chapter 22. We believe the new resolution granting exclusive powers to council members is an illegal attempt to change what is the statutory authority of the governing body in a general law city. The form of government existing for over 25 years has not changed. At least 6 mayors have served during this time. All past mayors have followed the local government code. Mr. Pulley and Mr. Rasko served as council members in the past. They know or should know the law concerning the elected offices. They have rejected city attorney advice on this matter. It is difficult to understand their position disclaiming the city's longstanding established form of government. We object to the special meeting agenda in its entirety. We reject proceedings and actions going forward predicated on disregard for the statutory laws upon which this city was established. We reject a weak mayor concept and demand leadership from our CEO. Again, I would like to exercise our policy of being able to point out facts to public comments, and I believe it is fact that we're following Chapter 22. I think it is fact that we have not broken any TOMA regulations, and if anyone has any evidence of that, then this would be a good time to state those facts. Hearing none, I think we're doing things exactly the way Chapter 22 and the Open Meetings Act prescribes, and we will keep doing exactly what we've been doing. If there are things that need to be tweaked in getting information to the city manager and to myself, then we will do that. But we have acted in accordance and under the advisement of the city manager and the city attorney, and feel confident that we are in the right. And if we're not, I think it's a fact that the Attorney General should know about it and take action. Thank you. The first item on the regular agenda is to discuss and take possible action on starting traffic enforcement by the Hays County Sheriff's Office with off-duty officers, as well as a possible budget amendment to allocate funds for same. And this is Councilmember Pulley's requested item, and we do have a special guest. So if you'd like to begin with the motion and get a second, we'll move on.
Okay, but let me, well, I would like to make a motion that we start utilizing the Hays County Sheriff's Office for targeted traffic enforcement in Woodcreek. And I'd also like, I don't know if I would do this now, we may need to talk about a budget amendment to allocate funds. Should I do that as a separate item, or should I include that in the motion?
I think that would be a question that Brenton could best answer on. I mean, I suppose it's where it comes from, and then if it's already covered in the budget, because conceivably I think that we could take something that was already allocated for similar service or similar amount and pay for it, but I think Brenton could answer that best.
Councilmember Pulley, we are planning to have a budget amendment in the first meeting in February. Therefore, whatever this council decides as to what the contract would be or the agreement on the hours, then we would include that in the budget amendment for next month.
All right, then I would ask that we take action on this item to start retaining the Hays County Sheriff's Office to run traffic patrols out here in traffic enforcement.
Do we have a second?
Second for discussion.
Second by Councilmember Hines.
Let me go ahead and fill in the blanks here a little bit. Bear with me a second. Yeah, we have been looking at alternatives. I have talked to Lieutenant Gutierrez's office for a couple of months, and it looks like this is a doable situation. We can get them under contract for 4-hour increments. It's $60 per hour, or about $240 per day. If we did it 4 times a month, that would be $960 per month, or about $11,520 per year. We could target enforcement areas that are ID'd by the neighborhood, that are ID'd by our software. I understand that the Sheriff's Office is wanting to give us, reasonable reporting in terms of what their activity has been. I think it's a good alternative going forward. I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Dennis Gutierrez, who's here. He is the Hays County Sheriff Office Public Information Officer, and he's also in charge of the off-duty job. He's a coordinator for off-duty jobs for the officers. So, Mr. Gutierrez.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here to address you all for any questions you might have. I'm Lieutenant Dennis Gutierrez. I'm one of the lucky guys that has multiple hats at the agency, and one of those is handling off-duty jobs. I'm the coordinator for that. And I want to clarify something. I think you said $60 an hour. It's $50 an hour, and it's $60 on holidays. But I can go more into detail if you wish. But you know, when I was discussing this with Councilman Pulley, just want to make sure that we understand that this is for traffic enforcement only. This is any HO, you know, any type of ordinance enforcement, anything like that. It's strictly for traffic enforcement. If y'all want to go a different angle, then we need to get with the county attorney's office to draft up something a little bit more formal when it comes to that action. But we already do this for multiple other HOAs in different areas. Matter of fact, on the way over here, Ruby Ranch, the guy just checked on. They hire a deputy to run traffic control for 4 hours. And the things that we ask them to do is just let us know what day, what the hours they want. We can't break up the hours. It can't be 2 hours in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. It has to be 4 consecutive hours. And so we provide a deputy, and they run traffic enforcement based on the areas that you want us to try to enforce. And then I told Councilman Pulley that, you know, we could reasonably get some type of report to show exactly where the stops have been made. I don't know if you want to go so far as to know whether they're actual tickets or warnings, but, you know, we could definitely provide that if we need to.
Great. I think when we talked, basically, you said you need to know from us if we're going to do this frequency, you know, where you want us to go, a point person, and then basically where to send the bill. And that's pretty much all there is to getting this started. Is that right?
That's exactly it. I mean, if you wanted to, I mean, I could page this out tomorrow and start it tomorrow afternoon if I can find somebody that quick. However, that's all we would need. We would just need to know a little bit in advance if you want to do it once or twice a week for 4 hours. Do you want them in the morning, the afternoon? You guys dictate what you want us to, what days and what hours. I would say we could try to do 5, but that's a lot, 5 days a week. We do have a whole bunch of off-duty jobs, particularly closer to the weekend, so it makes it more difficult to cover. You know, that's basically about it.
Okay, and just one question, I'll get out of the way. The ticket process would be run through the local JP, through Judge Cable's court. We wouldn't have to set up our own court for this?
No, we would run those tickets through Justice Peace, Andy Cable's office.
Okay.
I just a couple of questions. So this could be, I mean, you may have patrol car one time, a motorcycle one time, or is it standard?
It could be either a motor unit or it could be a marked unit. It's just whoever's off duty. We're not authorized to run traffic in unmarked cars.
Right.
So it'd either be a marked patrol unit or a motorcycle.
Okay. And then the officers, the deputies are off duty, but they are full. I mean, they're still like fully, they can enforce any law. I mean, there's nothing, just because they're off duty doesn't mean.
Yeah, if we make a traffic stop, guys had an outstanding warrant, the person will be arrested.
Right.
You know, if guns or drugs are found in the vehicle, the same thing. So it's a traffic enforcement rule. However, it doesn't mean we stop doing all the other things. It's all inclusive. Right.
So it's not something that gets to Judge Cable's court and the defendant said, well, the officer was off duty, so.
No, that's never.
It doesn't matter.
Never been
Okay.
a question.
Okay.
So we're on 24/7 anyways.
And thank you for that.
No problem.
So you corrected to $50 an hour. Is there not a charge for the vehicle?
Yes, there is. The standard fee is $50 an hour for the officer with a 4-hour minimum. You can go longer than 4 if you want. It's $10 an hour for the car. And
That must be
so
where the
on
60 came from.
holidays, which, you know, we would identify in advance what we consider holidays would be the actual holidays and Christmas. If you guys wanted to run us through New Year's Eve, that goes to $60 an hour, but the vehicle fee stays the same. And then our billing, what we would do is we find out who the point of contact is. Irene Hernandez, who's my administrative assistant, would generate an invoice, and she emails it to whoever the point of contact is that will list the deputy's name, the hours he worked. It includes the vehicle fee, and the deputy gets paid directly by a check, and the vehicle fee gets paid. If you hire, say, 2 deputies for the week, you know, each deputy gets an individual check, but the vehicle fees can be combined under one check for the total hours of, if you say 2 a week for the 8 hours for the car.
Okay. My next question is, you mentioned that there's limited availability on the weekends. Will there be concern about availability in general? Do you have many officers looking for off-duty work? Are we going to be able to fill this on a regular basis?
I think we will be able to, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if an officer, like, I don't know how it works with your management system, but let's say an officer's sick or calls out, do you fill that position on your end for us, or do we just miss out on that opportunity?
Well, I mean, it has to be a very, we have a strict policy as far as when they just can't wake up in the morning and say, I don't feel like doing it. They can't work for 30 days if they do that. So if someone wakes up and he's sick, well, then that's always an issue. If he decides something has come up, he has to find somebody to cover his shift.
Okay.
So once they sign up for the job, they buy it and they've got to find a replacement.
And I think this is my last question, but would we be able to count on the same officers, do you think, or is this going to be sort of a rotation of whoever picks up the shifts?
Whoever picks up the shift, but you got some guys that like doing traffic.
Right.
So you'll see those guys typically working that. Some guys just like working different type of jobs. But yeah, more than likely you'll see probably more consistently the same guys working it.
Actually, go ahead. I have
Yeah.
one more question.
Good evening. It's my understanding that you have looked at you have had access to the data that is being collected by the radar signs in Woodcreek.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Well, I don't believe you're the officer or the one that has the access, but one of the sheriff's department officers has been giving access
That's correct.
Okay.
to look at the radar data.
No.
Now,
Well-
that possibly could Sergeant Ken Carpenter, the traffic sergeant,
Mhm.
he might have, but I don't know anything about that.
The reason I'm asking is I'm looking at if it's $60 an hour, $960 a month would be about 16 hours that they would work. And this is the agenda item. And I looked at that data, and what I see, where I saw the real troublesome speed events, if you want to call it, would be like on weekends and evenings. During the day, we're seeing, people going to school, people going to work. They're a few miles above the speed limit, but the spikes, and some of them, based on the time of the day and the day of the week, it gave me an indication that they may be more than speeding. There might be an issue of alcohol or other substance consumption. So you would handle all of that.
Oh, absolutely. Again, if, we stop somebody for speeding in the neighborhood and we step out, we make contact and we smell alcohol in his breath, we immediately goes into a DWI mode. So we'll pull him out and do what we have to do to enforce a DWI if that's in case what we have.
Lieutenant, would it be fair to say that the city could classify this as patrol, not necessarily just traffic, but the city would be paying for a certain amount of time to have a sheriff's deputy patrol the neighborhood?
Well, from what my understanding is, you were going to specify the areas, the target areas you wanted to stop speeders. So that's what we would be looking for the guidance with Mr. Pulley, what exactly the areas you guys want, and we would have them stay there. Now, we tell the guys that unless it's an officer needs assistance call, they can't run as a backup call to anything. Their off-duty job means that's what they're assigned, that's where they stay. Again, if it's an officer down or officer needs assistance, everything's out the window and we go.
I understand.
Well, it was Captain Burns that was given access to the.
Okay.
Captain Burns?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I better get with him soon because in about 5 days, he's retired.
Okay.
Let me find out how we can get all of that, and probably the traffic sergeant would be the best person that
Well,
can.
what you need to do is just provide us with who the best person would be,
Yes, sir.
and then we'll make sure
I
we'll
will-
email him and tell him this is how you access it.
I'll make contact with Captain Burns and find out how we're going to transition that to somebody.
Okay.
Either the captain replacing him or the traffic sergeant.
Councilmember Hines, you have another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to back up. At one point you said, now this was just for traffic control, and we understand you clarified you wouldn't be patrolling and driving around, but you kind of alluded to the possibility that there were other services that you also provide with off-duty officers. So could you give me a quick rundown of what that might be?
Well, they'd be enforcing ordinances. If they were doing standard patrol, we just got to make sure we understand what we're doing, whether we're doing traffic enforcement or we're doing traffic patrols. Now, we can do traffic patrols as well. If that's what you want, just need to specify that. We do that at Sunfield. We have deputies just drive around Sunfield looking for trouble spots, and they, pull vehicles over for running stop signs and speeding as well. But They look a lot at the construction areas, see if making sure that lumber's not being stolen and construction items. So, want to make sure we define what you guys want as far as the role. We can do traffic patrolling. We just want to enforce ordinances. The ordinance is what the big kicker is for us, because that's a whole different ball of wax.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick question. Is that something we can specify, on an ongoing basis, like we'd like you to do traffic enforcement and patrol? Because I feel bad for an officer just sitting in one place for 4 hours. If he wants to run radar on a spot, then patrol some, and run radar on another spot, I think that's fine. Is that within the scope of work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I would encourage you not to keep them at one spot, because you're right. And, once the word gets out, someone's out there, they see you in one spot, you have to be mobile. So, we'd want to have multiple different locations or a generic area where you want the enforcement to be done. But yes, he could definitely drive one. As he's driving to another location, if he sees something, a suspicious vehicle blacked out driving down the road or something. Obviously, golf carts are, I ran into them, sorry. I had 4 of them in front of me, blacked out, a couple with kids. So,
Wow.
Might be a little stop and chat, say, hey, you guys be careful driving. But yes, they would be able to do that as far as
Does that change the pricing at all?
no, it's $50 an hour. And that's what we charge Ruby Ranch, Sunfield, anybody that we contract with right now, it's at $50 an hour.
And it's any hours? Like it's not limited to 8 to 5 or?
No, not at all.
Okay.
80 hours. No, yeah.
All right.
Actually, the Ruby Ranch guy just checked on right now, so he'll probably
Oh,
work from 6
right.
p.m. to 10 p.m.
You said that. There.
So,
Thank
and weekends, we probably can try to get that try. If you wanted to work some weekends, we can definitely put that in there too.
Okay.
In our monthly meetings that we have with all the supervisors, we see the targeted locations where we have a lot of accidents. Now, obviously, we're talking about Woodcreek area itself, correct?
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. If we had an area that was constantly having accidents, then we would, definitely want to focus our attention to that area. But yeah, so weekends and nights, that's not going to be a problem.
Great.
Can you tell me what percentage of stops result in an actual citation?
I don't have those stats with me. I don't know. That's totally at the discretion of the officer, depending on how fast they're going.
Right. Lieutenant Gutierrez, thank you very much.
Okay, well, if you have any questions afterwards, you can pass out the information. I had copies of the copy of the contract that we use and sitting on my desk with multiple copies there, so my apologies. But if you have any questions, I'm free. You have my phone number, sir.
Is that the 1 or 2 page document that talks about the rates, and then if you want to cancel, here's how you have to cancel and all that?
Right. I don't think we have that problem with you guys. I think unless there's something out of the ordinary, we say we don't need the traffic control. That's typically like if we're having we're working the quinceañera or something, they just
Right.
can't cancel on us an hour before we charge and you saw the paperwork, we charge a fee for that.
Sure.
Cancellation fee. But and what we're looking at here, we won't have that problem.
Right.
If it's raining, we still can run radar. That won't be a problem.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Thank
Really
you all very much.
appreciate it.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Thanks.
All right. Further discussion.
I think it's a good idea. I think the numbers make sense. I like this option. I think we'd be saving significant amount of funds versus hiring the constable for the city. My one caution today is that I think we should give a little bit more time for the public now having heard all of this. So I don't know that I would be ready for a vote today on this. I do think that if we are considering it, we could potentially move forward with amending the budget because we zeroed out the law enforcement budget last year when the plan was to cancel the contract. So right now there is nothing allocated for this service.
It would have to come in the budget amendment.
Right.
For the-
Yeah.
And then just the only other thing, since I have the mic, is I'd like to look at like our total cost when we reflect on this process and this service, adding up, what we're paying for a city inspector and those services, and now what we're paying for this. And if we're getting to a significant amount, I think we might want to reflect on that in the future and look at what are other options. You know, I know people have been concerned about a peacekeeper or somebody carrying a gun just for code enforcement, but it does seem like if we're starting to pay lots of money for all these little tidbits, that later on we could look at consolidating or getting somebody who could serve the full job on, you know, because if they can do it, they can do this and code enforcement. It's $50 an hour. I don't know, just something to reflect on. Those are my thoughts on this topic today.
Good. So
I agree.
go ahead.
I agree, because when you look at this item at $960 a month is 14 hours a month. If we want to have effective, we need more than that, particularly on weekends. And I know that there was discussion, and that is something we can do that as part of the budget discussions next month. But I do agree that we need to start looking at the whole picture and all these pieces we're paying. Would it be more, maybe it makes more sense to have a position and get the input from the public. I think that's important. I agree.
Mr. Pilley?
Well, I mean, I agree with that, but I think this is a good interim step that we can have in place for some time to at least start running radar. And I think folks on Woodcreek Drive, on Brook Hollow, on Champion Circle, they're ready to see a presence out here for law enforcement. We're not locked into a long-term contract. We're not locked into anything. We can use them once a week or twice a week on an as-needed basis where we need them. It's a really good, flexible alternative and option to be utilizing now while we try to figure out what we're going to do going forward, because we've been trying to figure out what we're going to do going forward for years. This is a good step we can take right now that'll have an immediate impact while we're working on maybe a long-term solution if there is one. And it's relatively inexpensive. If you're talking $11,500 a year, you know, we spend more than that on a lot of things. And I think this is a good investment for the near term.
Could I ask a question of that? So is what you are thinking right now, I mean, tonight, that, you know, we can agree that we can begin working with the sheriff's department for off-duty officers in those blocks of time with no long-term commitment, because I think part of the question is, you know, if we're going to make a budget amendment, you know, we need to have a better idea of what those, I don't want to call them patrol patterns, but what those patterns would be, so we have a real budget figure that we can do.
Right.
So, I mean, we could then agree that we will just do the patrols, you know, as we look deeper into the budget and what that would look like, and make the proper budget amendment, because we could be doing that in the next week.
Well, I just want, I mean, I've been working on this for a while. I think it's a good solution. I hate to keep pushing it back. Like one of these days we'll come back and do a budget amendment. I'd like to get some kind of an agreement that we're going to go forward on this, and then we can work on the budget. We're talking $960 a month, and that's not a heavy lift. So we ought to be able to figure that out. That's one of the primary things I heard people when I walked the neighborhood was, we really want to see that, and I want to see it happen. So that's what I'm asking for. Let's agree that we're going to utilize this process, and then we can either, it's on the agenda, work on a budget amendment right now, or set that up for later. There is excess funds in the budget that we can utilize. Shouldn't be that difficult, but I want to start moving on this now because I want to get it done.
Mayor, may I? For me to be comfortable on voting on something, what I would want is that we kind of agree now how many days we're asking. Because right now what I'm hearing is kind of more open-ended than that, and I don't know if I can vote on an open-ended question. I will ask that as a question.
What's in my thought process is, let's try once a week. And that's what I've been saying. It's $960 a month. Let's do once a week, you know, for a little bit, see how it works out. And that's a minimum commitment. At least we get something happening out here, and then we can adjust from there. So that's what I'm asking for. Let's at least look at doing once a week, 4 times a month for a certain period of time, and then see what we think, you know?
Great. I would like to do a follow-up question. Aurora, since you've really looked into this data, what would you say would be our block of time? I'm going to kind of rely on you to come up with that one a day.
Based on the numbers I looked at a few days ago, I would say your critical days would be Fridays, evenings, and Saturdays. And what I saw also on the numbers is spikes occurring like after at 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. So I would say 3 hours on 6 hours per weekend, or at least,
they have to
come
do
in on a
4, so
Friday
it's gotta be 4 hours.
and
got
stay
4 hours.
a 4 hour minimum. And what I was doing here computing was if you do 2 days, 4 weekends, you're going to have 16, you would need 3 days, 2 days, 4 weekends, 8 days, 4 hours. That would be 32 hours. So I think that I think this is a good step, but I think when we look at the budget, we should be realistic. And it may be something to do. I think it's an interim step while we consider other options, but we should be realistic and plan. We have the data. And I know Deborah's looked at it.
I'm looking at it right now, actually. On the 21st, which was, I think that was Friday.
I don't know.
Nope,
21st was
backing up.
Friday, yes.
No, wait. Oh, sorry, I was on the wrong month. Yeah, so 21st was Friday. It looks like on Friday alone, we have 20, almost 30 high-speed alerts. They range throughout the entire day. Some of them occurred in the evening, but a lot of our high-speed alerts actually happen 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And I think we could also decide, okay, what speeding is most concerning? Or just a lot of people going over the speed limit, is that concerning? Or is it the people that are going, at 740, going nearly 40 miles an hour?
Yeah. And
I mean, they're both problematic to me. I think we should probably mix it up, some days.
Well,
A morning, 1 week it's Monday AM reminding off to work people to slow down. The next week it's Friday afternoon.
mixing it up is the good stuff, because once they know, if you do the habit like once they know the pattern, they're going to slow down in those areas and then continue the speeding behavior elsewhere. So
Right.
I think the lieutenant indicated that, and that is that we should mix it up.
Yeah.
And I noticed, going to work, the clusters of going to work, going to school,
Mhm.
we have people that are going 35, 40 miles an hour.
That's right.
And then we had the evening ones, the ones that were going, the guy who took out the mailbox on Brook Hollow, the evening is, so I would say that we need to be realistic in our computations with $960, which allow for, be sufficient for us to create a culture where people understand they speed, they'll be caught.
Yeah.
And that's the best deterrent for speeding.
Yeah. On Saturday night this past weekend at 1 a.m., somebody was going 40 miles an hour down Brook Hollow.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I personally was out driving Brook Hollow, and it was 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening, and I had somebody behind me. I was going 25, 24, and I was somebody behind me, and they passed me.
Yeah.
On Brook Hollow, which is dangerous because there was low visibility, and I lost sight of them. So I'm not sitting in my car. I cannot estimate, but they were not going 30, 40. They were going faster than that, which scares me
yes.
with the deer
Um,
in the dark.
okay, can we?
I'll just be really quick. I think when we saw the Woodcreek data, it was pretty spread out in terms of, it wasn't really isolated, but that's something we can look at it as an ongoing basis when we make these assignments. We don't have to commit right now, but pull the data up and go, here's where we got a problem, and then give the officers the feedback, as to where the problem is and when it is. That's what's good about having the data now. And I think Aurora's right about establishing a culture I used to live next to Highland Park in Dallas. You would speed anywhere in town, but the one place you didn't was the Park Cities because they ran radar there and you didn't know when. And it seemed like every time I sped through there, they were there. So you develop that thought process when you do mix it up, I think, like you're saying, Aurora.
All right.
So.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, the reason I think that this is a good idea is there's a position under the local government code and under the code of ordinances that does need to be filled. And if there is even a stopgap opportunity to fill that position so that it's not sitting vacant, that's a good thing. And I think what Brent has come up with, there's an opportunity to actually date before committing to a relationship on this thing, which you normally have to do when you enter into some kind of a contract with law enforcement. But literally there's an opportunity to say, we have this vacant position that we are statutorily required to fill. Here's someone that can fill it while we determine if this is in fact a viable relationship that we want to have in the long term. And so for that reason, I think it is a very smart thing to do.
May I follow up with a question of that? So
Yes.
what you're stating is that we are required to have this?
Under the local government code, we are required to fill the position of what's called city marshal. However, you can abolish the position of marshal and you can come up with some other way. You can have a chief of police. You can contract with a law enforcement agency. And so what the city's done for past number of years, I think dating back to 13, is contracted with Daryl's, then Ray's, and then Don's office. But that has run its course. And so now we've got a scenario where we don't have someone filling that role, patrolling, running traffic, etc. And I mean, I suppose it's hypothetically possible that this council could say, yeah, things didn't work out with having the sheriff's office do it on a contract basis. But so we don't have a gap, this enables us to fill it at the very least on a short-term basis.
You've had your 2 times.
I understand.
No,
I was
you're
going to
not.
make a point of order comment,
Please, go
actually. So I believe right now the motion on the floor has nothing to do with a budget amendment. And so we need,
Possible budget amendment.
is that the motion that is on the floor? No. So we will need a second motion for the budget amendment in order to fund this.
Can we do that by amending the motion or do we need a separate motion?
Can amend the motion.
Well, you can I would do a
What's the
division
motion?
of the question, so that way you have 2 main motions.
Okay, then the first motion stands. I would like to proceed with getting the Hays County Sheriff's Office out here on, I guess for now, once a week? Is that what we're talking about? Or does my motion, I've already stated my motion before.
What's-
so-
Right, start utilizing the Hays County Sheriff's Office for traffic enforcement and patrols.
I would like to amend that to 1 day a week.
I second.
I'll accept that.
Okay, so
Can I make a correction there? Because when you say 1 day a week, should it be 1 time?
4 hours.
Yeah.
yeah,
What?
For a
Yes.
4-hour increment, yes.
Yes, thank you for the
1
correction.
4-hour increment a week.
In 4-hour increments.
Okay, the main motion's been amended and seconded to include a 1 4-hour slot per week, which gives us what we need for the budget amendment. Can we vote on the amendment?
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun? Aye. Councilmember Brizendine?
Aye.
Councilmember Brummer?
Aye.
Councilmember Hines?
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley?
Aye.
The amendment is accepted. We can vote now on the main motion as amended.
Okay, Councilmember Brummer?
Aye.
Councilmember Hines?
Aye.
Councilmember Brizendine?
Aye.
Councilmember LeBrun?
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley?
Aye.
All right. Passed unanimously. I think our citizens will thank us for this. And we certainly thank the Sheriff's
Parliamentary
Department.
inquiry, I'm sorry. Did we have a division of the question or no?
No, you amended you offered an amendment to the motion, and that's what we voted on.
Okay.
And that
Thank
was
you.
that.
Thank you, sir.
Do we, do we need a second amendment? Because the agenda item called for a possible budget amendment. Do we need to deal with that now or?
No,
Yes.
when we said that we were going to do it once a week, that set
Okay.
a price, which gives us what we need to work for
Right.
on a budget amendment
Okay.
under the current scenario. Now, if we decide at some point that we want to increase to 2 days or whatever, then we would have to take this up again.
Mhm. Okay.
Is that
Yes.
okay with you?
Yeah.
That works.
They'll be included in the budget amendment. They'll be presented at the February 9th meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir.
All right, we can move on to item number 2, discussion and editing of draft 1.
Mayor, it's 7:11.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah, we probably should go ahead and
I'm
go
very
into
sorry.
executive
Okay,
session.
so if there's no objection, we're going to move item number 5, and we'll take item number 5 now, which is pursuant to Chapter 551.071, executive session for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel regarding the City of Woodcreek's franchise agreement with Aqua Texas. And we will go into executive session at 7:11. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Yep, sure.
What's up with 7-Eleven?
It's just a convenience.
Well, this is going to be another 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I didn't really think the first out of it was gonna come fall. So, just try to keep it reined in.
Thank you. I think item 2 is going to be long too.
Yeah, I mean, I've read over the questions and, they're not really anything out of line. Seems to be, they're pretty objective. I don't think we need 12 because we already did it.
Yeah, I thought so too.
No action taken or to tell me? No action. No, there's no action. All right. We can reconvene back into regular session, 8:05. And on the item of executive session, no action was taken. That was item number 5. No action taken. We'll move back to item number 2, discussion and editing of draft 1 of the informal road funding survey. Councilmember Hines item.
I would like to make a motion that we discuss and edit the draft 1 of the informal road funding survey.
I second.
Seconded by Councilmember Grummer.
Mayor, if I may?
Yep.
I would like to move to suspend the Roberts rules for this item only for a more casual approach to this discussion. Needs a second and a 2/3 vote.
I second that.
Do we vote?
2/3 vote, call roll.
You'll be dead.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Councilmember Brisendine.
Aye.
They're great.
Studying up, man.
So, as I was saying, I read through this. I've worked with lots of surveys. I know Councilmember Hines has as well. I think she's done a great job in putting it together. As far as editing goes, I have a long-standing aversion to editing by committee.
Yeah.
But if there's anything that anybody sees in here that they'd like to suggest edits on, this would be kind of good. The one thing that I said is like just on question number 12 with the platinum panel, we've already agreed that we're going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's necessary as a question on the survey.
Okay, so we removed 12. The other question I wasn't really sure about, and I even said optional. It says optional question, rate how involved you've been. My thinking on that was you might get some people who skew this, who haven't been paying attention to this discussion. So if you can kind of link that, like, where are you in this discussion up with their results, it can give you a better understanding of the results. Not a necessary question, and it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but those kind of nuances help with surveys when you're looking to interpret the data later, like we saw with the comprehensive plan survey, not linking the people's region with their survey eventually, with other questions kind of cause problems when understanding drainage. So that's kind of the point of that. I didn't have any other personal ones that I wasn't so sure about. The financial breakdown portion was going to have a summary and a link. And then aside from that, I just for council's knowledge, in between now and next meeting for the second draft, I was actually going to put the draft in a variety of delivery methods for everyone to try out. So that when we came to the next meeting, not only would we be looking at the second draft, we'd potentially be looking at, do we like Qualtrics? Do we like SurveyMonkey? Do we like Google? Do we like Microsoft Office? Do we like, Nextdoor even has a feature to just do polling on Nextdoor. It needs to be shorter, but we could do sectional polling. It could even just be delivered via email, like print this out, fill it out. I'm just open to suggestions on that front, and I'm willing to input the data if we receive paper copies and provide that.
I do have a comment that, and I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my hearing aids today. They keep turning off. But I like all the questions, but one of the things I did not see, and I thought maybe we should ask a question that says, do you support including traffic calming options at the time the roads are improved?
Okay.
I actually have one.
Because
very
I think that was going back to the survey, that was something that has come up.
Okay.
So
Councilman Grummer.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback, I have a question, but I added it more of a please rate these qualities for future road repairs. And I did things like based on your priority, and so it would be a rating system, and then having all these different qualities, such as having a schedule for future pothole repairs, drainage, stormwater infrastructure, reducing speeding traffic, long-lasting materials, or the repairs of those roads, which would increase the cost. Or then there's things like, are your streets too narrow? Are they too wide? It's just kind of having a list of them, including traffic calming devices, other than speed bumps. And then you would have one that said with speed bumps, just kind of give people the information. And then issues like cut through traffic. And then a big broad question, are you most interested in keeping the costs low, but having a lesser quality of road? Or are you more interested in, I want the best quality we can afford? Just kind of asking those kind of big general questions and rate them, and we can kind of get a better map of direction, is what I'm thinking.
I don't disagree with that. This survey was specifically about funding,
Okay.
which is my only comment to that. I think those are all excellent things to discuss,
Well, I see
and we
how
could do more than one survey, like at a later date,
Okay.
or I don't know.
I was thinking it as funding because some of these things will cost money, and if they
Yeah.
don't, I also saw this as educational in ways that if we're not, if the citizens don't want us to consider other things other than just the road in a very concrete sort of fashion, then that affects how we think about funding.
What if it said, would you like us to consider any of these other options, and have them check the boxes? Or if you do a rating system on that, you can. Those things tend to confuse people if they're over like 5.
Okay.
So it would be pick your top 3.
Yeah, I mean, what of this list? What are the most important items to you?
Okay.
Because that does drive costs, which also
Right.
drives decisions on how it's going to be funded.
Okay.
The other,
Hold it. Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
I'm sorry. You still have more.
And another question, Deborah, I was interested in on the first paragraph before you get to any of the questions. Are we interested in providing a brief description based on the main differences of the two different forms?
Yes,
in some
that
kind of
is the
quick
goal.
way.
I'm not sure I'm understanding you, I guess. Would you mind restating that?
Yeah, we're describing two different forms of debt.
Yeah. So right now, as the city has discussed, we really only have there's three options: do nothing and save up money and pay for it out of pocket, or take a tax note, or do a general bond election. And so this, because it's based on funding options now, is really only looking at tax notes versus the bond and comparing the two of those options, because if I understood correctly, those are the only two municipal funding options our city has available to them. To us.
But isn't there a fourth option, which is we could do a combination of?
Yes, but that is an entirely different discussion, is what I thought. You know what I mean? Yeah, you could take a tax note now, roll it into a bond, and that would still always be an option with either option we choose. Meaning, if we went bond, we could, if it fails, still do a tax note, and we're out of what, $100 for the election or whatever we decided. Or what was it? How much does an election cost?
The election, I just got the bill for the election for the general election was $1,000.
So it's $1,000 for a general election, but for a bond election, adding that item in would be probably less.
If it's on the regular general election, shouldn't cost hardly anything.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Chris, since we're doing this informally, I'll just call you Chris.
Okay.
So it sounded like what you were asking is in the description, sort of more information about kind of what it would mean to go a tax note route, or what it would mean to go a bond route, which is kind of what are covered in questions 8 and 9. I think, 8 and 9.
And then 10 would actually give a breakdown. Now we've received a financial breakdown already. The city has, and it's been included in at least 2 agendas that I remember. But the goal there would be to provide something even simpler, and then a link where people could go learn more on their own. But I mean, I want to address what you're asking. I'm just not sure how to do it, or what more. What do I need to add, I guess.
Yeah, it was more of a question. When I was reading it, I was trying to be a citizen who may not have ever even heard the two different terms.
Which is
most
the
of them.
majority of us.
And so it's like, well, do I need to explain?
So move that up top is what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
Okay. So add a description at the top.
Just like one sentence.
This is, tax note means ...
Yeah.
Yeah, and to the optional question, that we were talking about earlier. I think this thing really does need to be addressed to just sort of assume that nobody's really been involved at all.
So just remove that and assume nobody knows anything.
Just assume and write it. I mean, like those kind of descriptions and things. Write it, to the person who has not been to a town hall, has not, does not know anything about this.
So maybe reorder the questions even.
That's what I would do. I mean, I would sort of do 8 and 9 higher. So say, okay, well, this is kind of what happens at a bond.
Right.
This is kind of what happens at a tax note. This is what we've been doing, which is, we've been saving up money and then just patching up what we could. We could even say an example of a tax note was how the Brook Hollow repaving was handled, and that Woodcreek, the resurfacing of Woodcreek recently was an example of saving up the money and getting it done when enough money was saved. The bond is the only thing we've never done before.
Okay, that's a good point. So that's a question though. So in the history of Woodcreek has never done a bond election.
No. I have a question about question number 10.
Okay.
All right, because it states that, do you support a general obligation bond with a small tax increase of about 5% if the city can receive most, if not all funds currently estimated as needed to repair all roads? And on the, when we were looking at the tax note versus the jail bond capacity, it was 5 cents just to generate $4.6 million versus 1.2.
Yeah, so the reason why I have that qualification is because in the town halls, it was consistently stated that about $4.5 million would be needed to repair the remaining roads. And that's always been an estimated number. And so obviously that's subject to change, but that's where that information came from.
Okay, because my question is, instead of being 5%, it's actually 5 cents.
5%. Oh, so it's just a typo. I see.
Right.
Okay.
Because we're
Yeah.
at 0.078 right now, it would be 0.128.
Okay.
The things I do like in our comprehensive plan is the open box question at the end.
Okay.
Would we consider doing that as well? I always think it's a great way to end a survey.
Yeah, general comments.
Yeah. Those kind of things can be really helpful and enlightening. They're great. They're hard to like tabulate or do anything with. That's an additional process, which I actually started with our survey of like how many times people mention, this item, whatever. So that's why when you force people to pick certain things, it's better. That's also why like you don't usually offer a middle option like neutral, because neutral basically says nothing and you should just delete all of those responses. Forcing people to pick things gives you more direction. It doesn't feel as good.
Who's going to tabulate these responses?
I've volunteered my time.
So when you get to things like question 4, you're going to have every street in the city.
All of the ones that we haven't repaired, yes. And I'm using the documents that y'all have already created. And then that's a good question, because I was going to ask if y'all wanted to work off of those categories that you made in those documents, because you had at least, I think, 4 different categories where you had like the smaller cul-de-sacs listed, in a group, and then there were the next middle size, and then, these larger sort of through traffic roads like Brook Hollow or, Woodcreek Drive, but, these are done, but you see what I'm saying? Like, so that's a good question. Like, do we want to group any of them? Do we want to list all the little roads?
To kind of go off the idea of using this also as information, to use the previous work that's been done in the roads, maybe we can move a document into this as well. It just kind of gives them information like, hey, we've already kind of thought about this, and if we do this road with this road, it works this way. And
there's been a lot of time and effort put into it. There's been 4 different roads committees and 3 different engineering studies put in those documents. So not to use them is remiss on the part of this council.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm thinking. It would be great to use this as a way of bringing out that communication further. We've had town halls, but like we might be touching more people that we've not touched yet.
So a great way to do that is always to provide more information. So at the bottom of it, you link up everything again. Adding graphics and stuff is totally possible. The difference between being able to do all of these really elaborate things is money, meaning we're talking about a free survey that's really simple and quick and, gives us a good direction, that we supplement with more town halls and more communication. Or are we doing a full scale, elaborate, put everything we can come up with? And I'm open to doing either. It's not that much more time consuming for me on the back end of creating the survey. It's just, we're talking about an investment number then, and I can bring estimates to the table next time.
Well, I think a good compromise then would be based on question 4 to address Councilmember Brisendine's idea is having the link right after that question. So people could either answer the question without hitting the link, or they could go to the link, get the information, and then come back and answer the question. It's
Yeah.
just an idea.
Yeah.
Because then it's not too cumbersome. I understand what you're saying.
I mean, there's not that many roads either. I mean, we're not talking about a list of 100 items. It's under
but I
50.
do think, that, and question 4 would be a good place to do it, to have something that just reminds them that this isn't the first time that we've looked, this has been going on. I mean, we've been studying this for a long time, and now we're ready to take some action.
Yeah.
More action. I mean, we've taken action. I mean, we've fixed roads.
Yeah.
But now it's like the majority of the roads are in pretty bad shape, and something has to be done.
Well, and Councilmember Brizendine said something that was really interesting in one of the town halls that I think a lot of people missed, was that the longer that we put these decisions off, or like if we, I'm not advocating for bonds or tax notes here. I'm just talking about a reality. But if we do sort of space this out and do a little chunk at a time, it actually starts to get more and more expensive because the roads continue to degrade, that substructure is, lost. And it can cause more problems that way. And so I think that kind of is why we're at this big decision moment of, do we want to address them all at once? I think that's the real reason we're considering a bond. And I don't know how to convey that to people without sounding like we're swaying them one way or other, because I was concerned about a survey like this swaying or coming off as if it's trying to sway. And that's not the goal, I think. And so I need other eyes on it.
I don't think it's an issue I think you have to ask that question. I mean, I know, I understand your concern of biasing or swaying, but you need to ask that question. And
And my personal opinion is that we need to consolidate this. I think most people are going to get lost in a survey of this magnitude. That if we make it concise, these are the definitions of a tax note and a general election bond. These will generate this kind of revenue to where we can do this many roads. And what would be your preference?
Okay, so are there specific questions you're suggesting that we consolidate or omit?
Well, I think number 4 is kind of irrelevant because everybody is going to say their road.
Really?
I mean,
I don't. Okay, well, I mean, we can remove it.
If they come back and say, we want a general election bond, we want to do them all, then what each individual wanted is kind of irrelevant. It's kind of a moot point.
Do you think by grouping them in those categories that would be relevant on that question?
I absolutely think
Meaning
if you're
like,
going to ask those kind of questions, they need to be specific and they need to be blocked.
okay, so what I'm saying, going back to that point, so if we put those categories that you created or the roads committee created, where it was like grouping them on the types of roads, the reason why I'm pushing back on this at all is because the people in the cul-de-sacs get left out all the time. And so I'm wondering if a lot of people are like, cul-de-sacs are most important and we want a tax note, if that doesn't give us a really clear picture of what needs to happen for our city versus we don't know which roads to pick. So we pick a main thoroughfare again, and we keep doing those. Meanwhile, our cul-de-sacs are getting more and more expensive, and there's actually a lot of them, so they're adding up. Does this make sense?
Smaller, but they take the most amount of damage
Right.
because of the circles.
Oh, I listened to you.
And
Yeah.
They keep getting pushed off because they're small and they have the fewer amount of cars going on them.
Right.
But if you look at the plan that we put together, the most recent plan we put together, when we do a main road, we do everything off of it, which covers those cul-de-sacs. So there is a plan to do it that way, which does not eliminate them being done.
Okay, so do you want to just link that plan there instead of have a question?
I think it would be smarter because it's more self-explanatory than just asking an individual, which road do you want done?
Okay. All right, so we haven't consolidated anything though.
But one of the things that keeps coming to mind is that I mean, and really sort of falls around okay, well, where do you live? That makes your road the top priority.
Right.
Well, we have to assume that. So if we say that we're going to either not do anything, do it the way we've been doing, or if we say we're going to do tax notes, then they have to understand that then we have to prioritize what's going to be done. If we do a bond, there's not really a question of prioritizing because they're all going to be done.
Right.
Everything's going to be done in one swell food. So
Well,
if they understand.
Not exactly. The general contractors don't work that way.
Well, I know, but I mean, the plan is that okay, so you float a bond, most of the streets get done over a period of time. Whereas you do a tax note, you do some, you sit back.
We have to wait 3 years.
You do some more. You wait 3 years. You do some more. So
Right.
So you have to prioritize which ones are going to get done.
But if there is a plan and they agree to do a general election bond, there is a plan as to how we're going to do them. And if you do the main road and everything that
Right.
comes off of it, then you've got one section of our
Yeah,
city
phase one.
done.
Cool.
Phase one.
Okay, so y'all have clarified that point for sure. I think what we do moving forward is we know if we do tax notes, you have to prioritize the roads. Here's a plan and a general bond. We also have and we just mentioned the plan, but just make it clear that in a tax note, because during the election, the biggest question everybody asked me in regards to this was, well, what's the problem with the tax notes? And I don't, and then they were about it because it sounded like we were saving money. And then it was like, they didn't understand, but we have to wait 3 years before we can renew. It didn't matter how many times you said that. It's still, that was the, why don't we just do another one every year? And I was like, well, you can't. You have to wait 3 years. So, we'll be able to help a small portion of the city immediately, but there's, this lag in it.
Right. And in the meantime, as you were saying before, the areas that aren't in that priority are
getting worse.
Getting worse.
Okay. So are there any questions we want to strike? Is there any consolidation that we can do?
If you move 6 to the bottom, that's Councilmember Grummer comment.
Mhm.
question.
Oh, right. Open-ended.
May I suggest that you just kind of go back to the drawing board with this and represent something?
No, I'm going to present a second draft because if we keep doing a first draft, we don't get forward. So I'm not going to, we have a document. Give me feedback on what exists here. Like, we're going to strike a question. We're going to put them together. We need, we need to move forward.
Come back with it. Yeah,
A
come back
second
with a
draft.
second draft for this.
What needs to go? Or what are the issues with it that would warrant me starting over?
If you're looking at reducing the optional question, after you have 1, 2, and then you have optional question.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask that.
Okay. So do you think we could strike 1 and 2 if we provide a clear description at the top?
Right. Yep.
So remove 1 and 2, add description instead.
Mhm.
Okay, let's look at number 3. Do you think it is best for the city to fund and repair all roads together, or should the city approach it one project at a time?
Well, if you've already described the 2 different tax notes or the tax debts, do you need the question anymore?
Okay.
Yeah, but you're going to get that question in.
Financial.
Well, you're
But it could
basically
be-
getting the answer to that question when you say, "Well, do you want a tax note or do you want a bond?"
So, in creating a survey, you put all of the questions, every single question you can think of.
Yep.
You nix the redundancies, you combine, and then you basically ensure that you've covered all the bases. So this was essentially what is every single question somebody could potentially ask about this topic? Phrased in many ways. So there are redundancies. I expected y'all to say 4 of these should go, or be combined. Even number 5, do you feel like you understand the 2 forms of debt being considered?
I think that's a good question because it could give us feedback that even though we have an explanation on the survey, that maybe it still isn't a good enough explanation.
Well, and you can have that branching question that says, If no, what do you need more information about? Because if there's consistency in that response, then we can send out a.
Yep. All right, number 6. What more can the city do to help you feel informed about this topic?
Well, didn't we
That
just
was the
merge
question
that?
that we're moving down to the bottom and making.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah, I have that in my note here. Sorry. Number 7. Sorry, I just decided to do it itemized because we were kind of stalemating. What more should the city do before making the decision to go with a tax note extension or start the process of going towards a general bond election?
Do you want to put options there or open-ended? I mean, town hall meetings, what?
I mean, options are great. The more prompts, the more you force specific responses, the more your survey will actually tell you. Because, people might not call town halls the same thing. So then it gets confusing. So, yeah, options would be great. What are our options? Another town hall. I think we already were planning that.
Right.
Public what is the other options of public hearing?
Public hearing would be another one.
Public mailer.
A mailer. What about like a class or something? I mean, I'm just throwing, what are our options? Like, what more can we do? Just more discussion in a council meeting, more agenda?
Yeah, it's hard for me to come up with hard for me to come up with that. Because frankly, I mean, we haven't had great response on the town halls. I mean, what can we do besides, keep sending out information, via, email and other sources that we have.
So am I hearing that you're
I'm not saying
asking,
don't say town hall, but it's just like,
so what I just heard you say, which is a different twist to the question, is what would be best for you to get the information?
this isn't how would it be best for you to receive information on roads and funding sources? Email, text, town hall, public hearing.
Because they may just all say one thing, and that would be like, oh, well, then let's just only focus
Mailer.
Okay. Oh, I got a lot of options here. I have coffee talk, town hall, public hearing, mailer, another council meeting, direct. Sorry, this is supposed to be emails.
Well, you could
text.
Have a city workshop.
Okay, workshop.
Yeah, a workshop as opposed to a council meeting, because then you're focusing on the issue.
Okay. Number 8, do you support the city using the tax note extension process to repair 1 or 2 more miles of road and keeping the tax rate the same if this means it would be 3 more years before road repairs could be funded? Any issues with that? Is it leading? Is it scary? Does it portray the topic properly?
I'm hearing this in the description of the top paragraph of tax notes rather than a question.
Okay, so you want to move all of that extra stuff to description and then just have a question say pick tax notes or bond.
Yeah, if you describe what they do, and then sort of at the bottom you say, well, do you want this one? Do you want that one? Or do you want that one?
Okay, so on that, do you want it to say pick tax note or bond or tax note followed by bond? Do you want to even offer that option?
None of the same. Keep doing what we've been doing.
But you're going to work
It's an option.
8, 9, and 10 are going to become part of the definition or defined terms, and then you're going to ask the next question will be the question that keys off those definitions, right?
Okay, yeah, but let's pause for a second because number 9 and 10 do present a problem to this lumping it all, because when the financial advisor presented us with our options, he essentially said, you can do a tax note and repair this much. You could do a bond and get more money, but keep your rate the same. Remember, he's right?
Right.
Yeah.
Do less keep the rate the same.
keep
or
this, yeah.
pay
So
a little bit more and get it all done.
so under the bond, there's even this second level of,
But if in the description above, we're saying, okay, well, there are actually several options that, the city's been looking at. Here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one. These two bullets on general obligation bonds, there's options here, just so you know. So then when you get down to, question 11, do you prefer this, that, or the other, which would be a branch question? Then, you've described it in bullets above. So basically it's like, okay, here's a roads primer. And now we want to hear a little bit about what you think about it. And so then there's, 8 questions, that clarify their thinking on what we've presented.
okay,
I think that's what we're trying to do.
okay.
So you've got the education, and then you've got some answers.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to skip 10 because now it's a little bit redundant. Number 11, would you rather the city extend tax notes or pursue a bond? Again, so that we've tidied all of that up. You said remove number 12. Now, is there anything else y'all want to address in this? I have notes on your other things, right? Like nature-based infrastructure.
So I think when I read a survey, what I do think is important is, as kind of an ending, other than open comments, is we can get the idea. Well, the question, I'll just go straight to it. Please rate your satisfaction or dissatisfaction with the recent repaving of Woodcreek Drive.
Oof.
Because we kind of already know that a lot of people liked it. So it's kind of a.
Do we want to
back
ask?
We've, hey, remember this good thing we've just done? We all kind of like this, how well it went. So am I making sense?
Yes. Do you want to ask about the other
I think
road?
that just clutters it up. Frankly,
Does it?
I like the
Okay.
idea, let's define these terms and then ask some basic, simple questions about, what do you want to do? I think that'll consolidate this and make it more attractive to people answering it. I think that just clutters it up. Frankly.
So
Your question I would have liked to have seen right after it was completed as a one question survey.
Yeah.
I guess
How'd it go?
It's how
How
I
we
think,
doing?
is I'm a visual thinker. So I have these abstract ideas of tax notes and bonds and stuff. And then having a question that goes, here's that road, you on it every day. So it brings the abstract of how we're paying for this to something concrete. And that's
Or
just
asphalt.
how I'm thinking. But I'm not attached to it. I'm just saying that's how I like to process things.
So you're onto something with the end rating, because if you ask people those kind of like feel goody questions at the end of surveys, it's helpful. So what if you asked, rate your satisfaction with like the city communication on this or this process? I don't see how we could ask about Woodcreek Drive without asking about Brook Hollow as well. And then you get into the messy business of comparing and blah blah blah. But
It feels good. I like your suggestion if you think that's necessary. But do you have what you need on this, or?
Seems like it.
I mean, I'm here at y'all's leisure right now. I literally, this is a scratch document, everything I could possibly think of thrown out in all the ways it could be asked. So unless y'all have anything else, I'm done. I mean, I can make a second
You've got
draft.
enough to get to the second draft.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deborah.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd like to. It is 8:40.
cool.
Thank you for the reward.
Yeah.
Appreciate it a lot. All right, item number 3, discuss and take appropriate action on requesting staff to begin the process of gaining a Tree City designation. Councilmember Grummert.
Move as written.
Second.
City Manager Lewis.
Yes.
I've read a document somewhere that we put it to the tree board to do this. Was this?
No, basically, there's 4 steps that you have to do to have to receive the Tree City designation. 1, and this would not be filed until December or January So December of 2022 or January of 23. You delegate the responsibility for public trees to a tree board and or a department, and the tree board has been formed. Establish a tree care ordinance, and we need to send the ordinance to the Arbor Day Foundation to make sure it meets their standards, which we'll do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Document a community forestry program with an annual budget of at least $2 per capita, and on the form it just says, how much did you spend maintaining your trees? So we have to spend, say, on round numbers, $3,500, which we already do that anyway. And last would be hold an Arbor Day observance with a proclamation. And those are the 4 things you have to do, but you file after you've done them. So basically in Texas, usually your Arbor Day celebration is in November because that's when you plant trees in this area.
Does it have to be after the Arbor Day, or can you say we're going to have an Arbor Day?
You have to have documentation showing that you had your Arbor Day celebration.
So that pushes it to
But the Arbor Day doesn't have to be in November.
It could be any time, but we can't file for this until January of 23.
Well, the reason I was asking is like we talked about having a
Right. You can have it
educational
anytime.
day.
It's
So,
just a
and
tree.
We can call that our Arbor
It's
Day.
a tree celebration.
Yeah.
What? Why do we have to wait till January of 23?
Because you have to show it's for this calendar year. We did not do anything in 22 or
Okay.
21.
So it's a look back. You know, what have you
Right.
done?
What
as
have you
opposed to-
done?
Okay.
Okay.
That's a little different for dark skies, but it's, I guess, kind of the same thing. But
Well, it
okay.
sounds real doable.
We already have almost everything in place.
Yeah,
It's
right.
just we have to wait the year.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you for that explanation. So I guess this item is basically you're already doing it.
Yes.
So we don't really need to vote on it. I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Done and done. All right, item number 4, discussion and possible action on revision of City of Woodcreek Code of Ordinances, Chapter 151, to clarify what alter means in 151.03, that ordinance, and then provide for a deemed approved deadline for processing of permits under 151.08. That's Councilmember Pulley, and the ordinance is revised. Mr. Pulley and Mr. Wymore working together is in the packet.
Okay. I would move as written.
Second.
Discussion. Let me lead us through this briefly again. We've talked about this for several council meetings, so I'm not going to wear this out. But basically, we're looking to kind of update the ordinance and to clarify what we mean when you alter a property, and when you need a permit. Also establish some kind of a deadline in terms of when that permit is going to be processed. The new ordinance, I think, accomplishes that. 2 things to note from it. Some of the sections are directly from the city of Wimberley and how they've accomplished this. And also we've added language to bring us in line with the International Residential Code and to bring a lot of that language forward so you don't have to go digging around to try to find that in the IRC. If you look at the ordinance itself, which is in your package, bear with me a second. It starts, well, yeah, it starts, let me see.
The ordinance starts on page 11.
Yeah, the changes start on, let me see, yeah, page 11. And A and B on page 11, we're looking at 151.03. Those are the same. The changes are C, D, E, F, and G. And what C does is that's partially City of Wimberley, and then we add in a definition of structural changes right from the International Residential Code. Number D says it. C says you don't need a permit if you're not if it doesn't involve structural changes. D says if you do structural changes, you do need a permit. E is with regard to mechanicals in terms of electrical, plumbing, and that sort of thing. Again, that's consistent with the IRC. F, excuse me, losing my voice here, is deals specifically with roofs, and unless you're altering the structure, you don't need a permit. That again is consistent with the IRC. And then G, which states that you need a building permit if you're going to be if anything you're going to do is increase the overall impervious cover footprint for the property. And that's probably redundant from our other ordinances, but it's good to have that so that it's in the same place when you're looking at doing alterations. We also have a 45-day deadline for the processing of the permit. Otherwise, it's deemed approved. So I like it. I think Bud has gone through it, and I think we both like it. So I would ask that it be approved as written. We're willing to entertain any appropriate alterations.
Oh, I had one.
Councilmember Hines.
Thank you. I had one question on F. It doesn't, or actually I have two things. On F, it doesn't talk about metal roofs. And I understand a metal roof is like probably not heavier, but I just wanted, since so many people are going that route, it occurred to me that what is the process there?
Well, I mean, what this basically says, if you're not changing the structure, and that would I assume include changing pitch or anything like that, or not getting into the actual roof trusses and changing those, you don't need a permit. What it is saying is that if you install heavy roof materials such as tile or slate, because that's going to be a different load, issue, then you do need a permit. In terms of a metal roof, changing from tile to metal, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if that really affects the how much load you're putting on the structure or not. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that there's a lot of people that will leave the asphalt roof and then put the metal roof on top, which then increases the load because they don't want to hear it's kind of a sound barrier is what it is.
It's also just easier that way.
It is easier that way, and so then you are increasing the load on that.
So do we need to amend it? And
well, I mean, how would you handle that?
Tile or slate?
But I'm
Well,
gonna.
I think it's if you change the material.
change the material?
Yeah.
Change the material.
Okay,
But I do
change
have
the
to-
material. Okay, installation of heavy roofing materials such as tile or slate, or otherwise change the roofing material.
Yeah.
Okay. I would
I
go along with
it
that.
occurred. I apologize. It didn't occur to me last time, but driving down Woodcreek Drive, there's a ton of metal roofs, and one of them popped in my head, and I was like, "Uh-oh, we don't have that in there."
Yeah.
I have another issue with F too, because I know in some cities, they'll allow you to put up to 3 asphalt roofs.
Mhm.
That increases the weight as well, and we're not addressing that anywhere. We're just saying if
Yeah.
you just replacing a roof, it's no
Right.
big deal, and a lot of roofers do it, a
Mhm.
lot of
They
them.
do.
I don't know about that. I haven't seen anybody doing overlay out here. It just doesn't
Yeah.
seem that common.
Well, how can we just address it in the wording? Like just
Okay,
clean up.
Otherwise, use different materials, or otherwise increase the load.
By adding metal or adding
Overlays.
overlays.
Or otherwise increase load to roof structure.
So a change of material.
by
So
changing-
here's what I would do. Look down three lines, provided such work does not, open parentheses 1, close parentheses, involve structural changes to the residence or the installation of heavy roofing materials such as tile or slate, semicolon, or open parentheses 2, close parentheses, change the material of the roof. And that would,
But does that
Change
address
the
the 3
material
layers
or-
of asphalt roof?
That
Or
doesn't,
increase
that doesn't
overlay.
address the
change,
overlay.
change the material of the roof, and then we could add a third that says increase the load.
Yeah, I think that probably gets it.
Or
Yeah.
if you just put overlay, because that stops them from putting tin over asphalt or asphalt over asphalt or
Mhm.
any material over asphalt.
All right, let me pull this up. I can work on editing it.
So
Councilmember Hines.
the only other issue I noticed, and I thought this was in the last draft, so I was kind of surprised. We don't address a change in function or use of an item. So for example, a garage conversion, or like, what if you have a screened in porch and you decide, I want an extra bedroom, you start enclosing it, you run AC to it.
That's covered in E.
Where is change of
I
use?
think that'd be covered in E.
But
I mean, I'm not sure. if we're not doing
AC is
extras-
not covered in there. A vent, it says vent, right? But I'm just saying, there's not a change of use addressed here.
Electrical wiring, mechanical or other work affecting public health or public safety.
So a change of use and function, I thought was in it before.
Well, I'm kind of concerned, do we really want to get involved if you're not making structural changes, you know? I mean, who cares if they're going to enclose their back patio? I mean, if there's no structural change, I mean, it's their property, you ought to be able to do it.
It's a safety concern,
It is.
because you have to meet certain code and for fire escape.
Well, I think that's in the definition of structural changes in terms of change of any required means of egress or rearrangement parts of a structure affecting egress requirements. Again, that's right out of the IRC, and that's what, you know, those guys have thought about this a lot more than we have.
I'm not arguing with it. I'm just trying to make sure that the average citizen, when reading this, is going to understand that they cannot convert their garage, they cannot convert their back porch without a permit. You know, and that was my only concern. We don't address a change of function or use.
Well, what I'm saying is if they're not making structural changes and they're not changing the wiring and that sort of thing, then is that really our business? I mean, if it is, then let's add that in. But I'm trying to get us out of the business of overseeing every little thing that someone does to their property.
I don't disagree, but you could, okay.
Then give me some language. What would you?
I just say it needs change of use and function. It needs change of use or function added.
All right, so under C, notwithstanding any provision of this building code, a building permit is not required for property interior or exterior repairs or renovations that do not involve structural changes. Okay. So you're talking about at the end of the first sentence.
Sure. I could have sworn it was in here. I didn't compare the drafts, but a change in function or use. I don't know how to say it legally. I can go look it up and give it to you. But
Okay, so when you're saying function or use, you're
so typically, like, there would be something specifying essentially you cannot change a non-living space into a living space. And so something people do to get around is they'll buy an AC unit and plug it in the wall.
Got it. Okay, so what you're saying is if there is a portion of a residence that is not presently fit for human consumption, or,
It's-
sorry, human occupation.
Yes.
Consumption, and if it's then switched to be made usable for human occupation.
Something people do is build a wall inside their
That makes
garage, never open their garage door, plug an AC unit in, and then they have an unsafe living condition that's never been permitted. And when the person in there dies in a fire,
Yeah.
you've got a big problem.
Well, I think we understand the point you're making, but how would you change this?
I can look up the official language. I believe it's a change in use or function, and that's what my notes said. I thought it was in there before, so I was surprised when I didn't see it this time. And I mean,
Okay, so how about if we add a subsection H that says any renovation that changes any portion, or I'm sorry, that changes any portion of a structure from being not fit for human occupation to being fit for human occupation requires a permit.
sure, it seems to address it.
Okay. So that would be subsection H.
So are we in a position now then to,
Did we get the roof structure thing right?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
So that now reads down to line 3, provided such work does not, 1, involve structural changes to the residence or the installation of heavy roofing materials such as tile or slate, semicolon 2, change the roofing material, semicolon, and or 3, increase the load.
Okay.
All right, and any renovation that changes any portion of any structure from not being fit for human occupation to being fit for human occupation shall require a permit. And that is now subsection H.
Okay. I can handle that.
So we need a motion now.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was gonna get to. So procedurally, we need to amend the ordinance as dictated by the city attorney.
We can accept with the amendments.
Right.
Yeah.
But we have to amend first and then accept. Right?
Okay. I have a question for at the last meeting, we discussed completed application. Do we define it anywhere in the ordinance? Because I had discussed, that I thought that we needed to specify that what a completed application is.
So an application would ultimately end up being what it is determined to be needed by. Okay. I'm sorry. What it is that is needed by the engineer to fully and thoroughly review it in the city.
Because I've looked at other cities and they define it to say an application that contains all information, data, and documentation necessary to support a decision.
Can I answer her, please?
Yeah.
So in the last meeting, Aurora, we talked about creating a timeline and then we approved that. And we also discussed in that process of creating kind of like a notice to residents to go on the website. And so in that is where we were going to add that language essentially of like your completed application, and that means ... Okay. And so I'm working on that timeline, but we were waiting on this.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, because it's my understanding a complete application may not be
right.
Correct. Okay.
Right. That was my question too. Is that okay? So if we've got the timeline established, that's one thing. Do we just simply reiterate it here, which says, so when we say when a completed application is received, including all supporting documentation, the city shall provide the applicant, blah, blah, blah.
What is it that you said, Aurora?
Well, it doesn't have to be exactly that. You can say, but I had read two things. An application that contains all required information, documents, signatures, fees or penalties, fees, something like that.
All required information, documentation,
signatures and fees.
Because I can read this, a completed application, I fill it out and sign it, and that's a completed application.
Right.
Yeah. But it might not include all the information that's
By
needed,
definition, it's a
or it might
completed
be
application.
incorrect.
Or it might be.
Right. No, I know.
Yeah, but you can. And
the thing is, if somebody reads this ordinance and say, okay, I know what I've got to do. I've got to fill out the application, and they haven't read the timeline. So just a reiteration is not a bad idea.
Okay. So what I did is under 151.08, I amended the first sentence. It now says, when a completed application is received, open parentheses, that is an application that contains all required information, documentation, signatures, and fees to support a decision.
Yeah, that's good.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the amendments we've discussed and that the city attorney has recorded.
Do I make that motion?
You can. You can.
Okay. So moved.
Second.
All right. So we'll vote to accept the language.
The amendment?
The
Yes.
amendment. The language in the amendment.
Well, we're going to vote on the amendment first.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's three different amendments?
No, two I have.
Three.
Three.
Do we need to take the amendment? Can we take the amendments as a group, or do we have to take them individually by item?
Should be, I think, a group.
So the first amendment was to correct the roofing materials and overlays. The second amendment was for function and use. And the third amendment was for the specification of a completed application.
Those three items. So that's what we'll be voting on.
Okay. Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBron,
Aye.
Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Brizendine.
Aye.
Okay, so now on the main motion. Councilmember Grummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Brizendine,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBron.
Aye.
All right. Passes unanimously. We will move on to item number 5.
6.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got it wrong on the cover sheet. My apologies. It is number 6. And that's to discuss and take appropriate action on restoring the rating for pools to 100% on impervious coverage guidelines.
I move as written.
Second.
Yes, ma'am?
Is it okay if I move? Okay.
Yes, Councilmember Hines.
So sorry, I got lost there for a second in my thought. I suggested this to get back in alignment with the valley-wide efforts to reduce and maintain low impervious coverage here for groundwater preservation and the ability for the water to absorb. This also follows the guidance of the Ordinance Review Committee given in October of 2020. That document is in the agenda packet. And that advice they were given was actually from the Meadows Center. So this is following scientific-based recommendations for our city. And so I'd like to get back in alignment with those if possible. I did note that pools under construction or in the process, like, already in process could be grandfathered in. So this isn't like you've got a big hole, too bad. It's more of just like, yeah.
I'd like to make an amendment and strike the word in-ground before swimming pool. We do have some above-ground swimming pools, and I think with that word there, it actually makes a loophole for them to not be applied.
May I address that?
Yes, please.
The above ground pools are in the zoning code and are restricted.
But we have some grandfathered.
We have some grandfathers, so if they do replace them, if they do anything, they're supposed to take them out completely.
I'm just saying this is about impervious cover, the way it's written, where it's only saying that those that are in-ground swimming pools have this impervious cover calculation. Where if we remove the word in-ground, it just means swimming pools. So somebody who has an above-ground grandfathered swimming pool isn't suddenly exempt.
If they, my question is, if they take it out.
Take the word out.
I know it, but what I'm saying is if they remove the above ground pool, the grandfathering's gone. They cannot replace it.
Correct.
So it's just that it's already covered in one area, but I have no problem about being here. Go ahead.
I'm understanding what you're saying now. You're saying that how do those pools calculate when you're calculating your impervious coverage? And without specifying pools, I mean, would we also need to address hot tubs? Or anything, ponds?
We do not address water features, but we do address hot tubs or anything else.
But I'm saying in
On
this,
the impervious cover, that counts against your impervious cover.
as 100% already?
Yes.
Hot tubs? So the pools were the only ones that were changed, right?
Yes.
Okay. So do we need to address above ground pools? Because how are they calculated in impervious coverage is his question.
Well, my question is, but we do not allow above ground swimming pools in the city. So the only ones that are there, they would be calculated
Already.
at 100% if they wanted to add anything because they already cover the ground.
Oh, okay.
But if they are taken out, they can't be replaced.
Correct. But they are already calculated at 100% is what you're saying.
Yes, just like the hot tub is.
Okay.
Okay.
Then
I didn't get a second to the amendment anyway.
technically I spoke, so I seconded it.
Question I have,
I'm
sorry
sorry.
to interrupt you.
You can withdraw.
So
Okay.
the amendment dies without a second.
I will withdraw. But we did start discussion, so technically we did have one.
Okay, correct.
I withdraw my amendment.
I'm trying to figure out all existing applications submitted prior to this date, any progress under construction shall be grandfathered. How do we define all existing applications? Again, is that complete applications, or what if someone submits an application and it's not complete? How do we handle that? I mean, should we further define what we're talking about, existing applications, so that someone doesn't have a bogus application in and then somehow gets grandfathered?
Do we have any in?
But no, we do not have, I don't think we have any. No, we have none in for the pool. Now, the question is, though, is since there's not an ordinance to amend, and this goes when I go back to the city attorney, there's not an actual amending ordinance being presented tonight, then can someone sneak in before the amending ordinance is actually adopted?
Insofar as a completed application is submitted and approved, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so would we cover that by saying completed application?
So,
I mean, I don't even see it in the ordinance. I'm just seeing it in the agenda subject title or whatever.
Okay, say that again.
What I'm trying to get to is if do we need to specify that it has to be a complete application before they get grandfathered?
Well, so my understanding is that is not a scenario that could come to pass, because I mean, right now there's not an actual submitted ordinance that we could vote on, and there are also no pending applications for pools. So that's not something we can be concerned about, or should be, I should say. However, if we come back at the next meeting with a completed ordinance ready to be voted on, that ordinance could certainly contain that language that says when
Just like we did in the last.
exactly, it would be a finally submitted, accepted application.
Okay, but that's not really relevant now because we're not going to approve any specific ordinance tonight.
Correct.
Okay.
However, for the next meeting,
Taking appropriate action is to direct the.
But there is a qualification here, if I may.
Yeah.
It says not just submitted, but in process and in process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so if they come in and sneak it in, it's not in process.
correct.
So we don't.
And basically, when staff prepares this amending ordinance, so I can take some money out of Bud's pocket.
Yeah,
So-
do it.
Okay. That it would not be in effect until it was published in the paper, because there is a penalty clause in there. So it would not be effective until probably the fourth week or third week of February.
So,
I think we worry about it if it occurs, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's built in that,
Yeah.
and that I
I agree.
I feel like if somebody gets it going and we can say, okay, you made it. Like, I mean,
I
like the movie.
I shudder to think that there would be a
yeah.
rash of people in Texas in February that would bombard the city with
One thing,
copious
they can't find a
amounts of
contractor.
applications.
Yeah. Okay.
So can we vote on this?
Okay, just the only concern is if word gets out on this, then we get a bunch of applications, then the way this is reading, they're grandfathered. I'm not talking about building a pool the next month. I'm talking about just getting an application in.
I think that there are not that many areas in town where the property owners that could actually put a pool in, even at the 50% now.
That's the truth.
You
Okay.
couldn't do it in
Hmm?
you couldn't do it in most of the older neighborhoods.
No, you can't.
Canyon Lake, Canyon Creek,
No.
it's a large.
Oh, most of our properties are sitting right at 29% anyway.
So is it enough of a non-issue that we can move forward with this?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to call the vote, please.
Okay, so is the motion to move, to request the
The-
city staff to
Right, so the motion is as written and the action is instructing the city attorney to, no, to the city manager to amend the existing ordinance and bring it back to council.
Okay. You gonna second that?
Second. Wait,
Well,
Yeah,
that
no.
was your motion.
now we just take a vote.
Yeah, I'm
It's-
just describing
Oh, I
it. The
seconded,
motion,
yes.
the motion was already made in second.
Seconded.
I did second, yes.
Now, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Mertz,
Aye.
Councilmember Brizendine,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Unanimous passage. We'll move on to item number 7, a report from the city manager, review of the city budget.
Okay. If I may, I'd requested, February is traditionally, we're going to be working on budget amendments. And I reviewed the financials for the first quarter of this fiscal year, and I had some concerns both on the reductions in some revenues and expenditures that were way above the projection for the first quarter. So that was the reasoning for asking for the report in preparation for the budget amendment next month. Take it away.
Okay, so basically you have, I just did a quick review of what I saw is maybe needs to be addressed. The sales tax revenue, we're 16,485 in 20, and then through December, and we're down about 61% on receipts there. There was a large deposit made. I don't know if the state caught up on some back sales tax or not, but we're watching that, so that might need to be reduced again. Our revenue that we got this month was about $7,500. So we're still staying constant between the 6 and 7, but we just had that big one deposit of 16,000. On the engineering reimbursements, I don't think we need to look at that right now for forecasted future accounts receivable. We will monitor it. We did only have one new home building permit filed on 11/3/21, and last year we had 3 already filed. And I don't know if that's because of the housing market, but we did scale it back overall again from what we had for the overall budget for this last year. On the inspection fees, that corresponds directly to the expenses on the inspection fees. So we'll be monitoring that. Little one, sign fees. It was a reduction in the rental of the public sign area. One of the major things was looking at the interest income that's been received. We have had a reduction in the funds invested because we did pay for the Woodcreek Drive project. And also the interest has dropped from 0.1768% to 0.0391%. And so that's a major concern, but we do have our funds invested both at our current bank and also through Texas Class, and they are both comparable. So we'll be really monitoring the interest income because we have dropped that back several times in the last few years. IT and radio expenses, we had been leasing the fixed location computers, or what I would call a tower there at the desk. Now we all have laptops that we can access all of our files from anywhere that we have internet access. And so that was a one-time expense for the laptops. Litigation, that can be amended after the receipt of the final billing. After the dismissal. So that will be a reduction. Then on the special cases, that's for what we use Lloyd Gosling for. So we don't know how much that'll be.
That's what you use what?
Lloyd Gosling for.
Like Jamie.
Okay, so that's for the aqua
Yes.
stuff. Okay.
Yes. Code compliance, we need to reclassify that to 7,030. And because that was actually part of the training session, and the actual when we sent them to the training, his hotel room is basically, and just travel. So that would be a budget amendment since we're reclassifying that. The prosecutor cost associated with the court. Right now, we don't have any new court dates scheduled. And so, that all depends on if we, just have a court date again. Woodcreek overlay injury cost, that was all within the scope of work that was estimated when they did that. So we'll go back through as soon as we get our January financials and look to see if there's any other amendments. But and then we'll also include for the agreement with the Sheriff's Department in there for a budget amendment. And then we'll go through cleanup a lot more. But anybody got any questions?
If not, thank you very much. We'll move on. Okay, agenda item number 8 is review of the permitting process during the first quarter of fiscal year, including number of permits issued, number of permits currently pending, number of permits successfully completed, number of violation letters sent, citations, stop work orders, and that was from me.
We do have a printout showing what all we've done.
Yeah, so that's what I was interested in.
Pass them out.
You wanted to show. Give you one. There you go.
Yep.
Thank you. So basically, this is just a breakdown of everybody that's been there. And I believe we've had 44 permits issued in the first quarter of 21-22. And this is just a breakdown by the day that was issued. And then on the second sheet is the number of violations by month that was reported. And all this is from October 1 through December 31st.
I like the word dangerous vegetation.
High weeds, grass too tall.
So these numbers, are these valid, or are they, just we sent out letters?
These are ones that I gave them notice of the violations. And then they took care of them.
So one of the things this says, points out, at least as a possibility, is that, we sort of said that, once we have enforcement going on, they're going to be really busy at first. And then things are going to get cleaned up.
Well, you can tell that in October we had 47, November 27, and then December 15.
And some of it is holiday. I mean, some of it's the season, but it's interesting to see that that Joe's doing his job.
Right, and we're just trying to get compliance for people to know what's on the books for the ordinances.
All right, that's exactly what I was after. So thank you very much for that. And I would like to see this as, if not monthly, quarterly.
Well,
just an update. This is a great recap for the time period.
My one request on that, sorry, it would be nice to kind of get a little bit more information, because what would be really neat about this is you see a lot of illegal parking, and then we've sent parking to P&Z to address. So if we had some sort of way to tell how people are illegally parking, we could maybe help address our code to fit our residents' needs more. Because, this is a great way to see what our residents need, and the way the code should maybe be serving them rather than penalizing everyone for just living their lives. Because it's just broad illegal parking. Or are they, just what, I could give some examples, but I won't. And I think if we could get some more clarification on the kinds, because, if everybody has parking problems, how do we help them fix the parking problems? How can we help our code?
Yeah, we can get more detail in there.
Yeah.
But again, it seems to be working.
Yeah.
If looking at illegal parking, we went from 24 to 12 to 2.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the conversation we were having about the sheriff. I mean, if you're considered like a place where you get caught speeding, you quit speeding. So I mean, it's kind of a tough education. A little tough love, if you will. But it's catching. What are the yellow highlights?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I just copied this from off of our shared folder.
Okay. I just didn't know whether
what
were
the yellow
those
highlights
stop
are?
work? Did they have
No.
stop work or something like that?
No,
done? So-
because you can see the ones that,
It's the high dollar ones.
Yeah.
No, it looks like it's new stuff.
yeah.
It's
Okay, it
New
is. It's the new home. You're right, Judy. And then the fourplex is where he finally paid for them.
You said, I didn't see your name on there.
No, I'm not on.
No,
it.
You
it's
said high
actually
dollar.
new
I
home
know the
construction or the fourplexes, and that's what it's there for.
Yeah,
Thank you, Judy.
you're welcome.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Thank you for pulling that together. All right, number 9, discuss and take appropriate action on amendment to the sign ordinance where it relates to political signs.
I would like to issue a motion that we only discuss this and that no action be taken.
Okay, no action will be taken.
So
So we have a motion to discuss,
I second.
second by Councilmember Grummert.
The reason why I said no action to be taken is I'm not totally sure we could take one. I've read and reread this, and I'm not really finding an avenue for us. Why I still want the discussion is because citizens expressed on social media sort of dismay that political signs were already popping up everywhere and that we're now living in like a year-round political battlefield. So the goal on this wasn't necessarily like, I'm not talking about limiting free speech or preventing people from supporting candidates, but how can we, is there something we could do here to like help unite the community and kind of remove the political sign debris from being a year-round thing? And unfortunately, I'm not sure the state will allow us, but I did think that the discussion would still be relevant for the citizens to hear us have.
Okay, I think I saw the conversation on social media. We just had the general election, and next there are signs already all over the place, and because of the primaries that are coming in March, and the citizens were like, "What's happening?" I agree. I had the same reaction. Now I don't know that we can address that if there is an election.
Yeah, so the code says 90 days for an HOA. And unfortunately, because of us being a type A general law city, if the state doesn't say we can do it, we cannot interpret it any other way. We're not a home rule city. They have the opposite advantage. But the question I did have and that I wanted to address was specifically the easement at the front of our city. The state does have this caveat where you can't prevent signs on personal property unless it's an easement for public use. And the reason why I've been concerned about those signs is that even specifically right now, they're framing our entrance and they give the impression that our city property, our city has endorsed candidates. And I'm concerned about that. And so I am wondering if there is something we can do there.
Who owns it?
Golf course.
Okay. It all depends if they're placing a sign within an easement that the city has the right to use. And I don't know, we can find out.
Well, it is, where they're placing the signs are in the property they own between our property and the state right of way.
And the purpose of the easement was originally for public use.
Okay. I mean, if in fact that's the case, then yeah, we can regulate it consistent with the law.
Okay. So in reading the law, what regulation could we take?
Pass an ordinance that regulates it within, you accurately stated our authority a
Right.
minute ago, which is we can do what is consistent with the general laws of the state. And essentially what it says is under section 259.03, the applicable code, it says you can't do the following. However, you can, when there is an easement, do blank. So the limitations on subsection B would not apply if it looks like if we attempted to pass an ordinance consistent with subsection C. Also, if we did pass an ordinance regarding signs that have an effective area greater than 36 feet, more than 8 feet high, or illuminated, and have moving elements. But I don't think we're complaining about that.
No, I haven't measured these signs. I'm not sure this would even prohibit them. I guess I
I
was
don't think
just
it would.
wanting more information about it.
Right.
Can I,
Yes.
go ahead. I mean,
No, what were you
go
saying?
ahead, finish your thought.
I did.
Okay. This is just being kind of rascally about this. But is there anything that would stop us from erecting something that along our property lines there to block those signs?
So what would the purpose, it all comes back to what the question of the purpose of the easement is. And an easement may only be used by the dominant estate. And if the city has the right to use another's property by virtue of an easement, the city therein is the dominant estate. Use of the dominant estate may only be consistent with the rights granted by the easement. And insofar as placement of signs or something blocking signs isn't in fact consistent with the rights granted, then I don't think that could happen. But again, I don't
know that unless you saw the
exactly. You're right. I mean, the next thing that I was going to say is I would have to see the easement, but I don't think that it would. I don't think that it would be very likely that the city would have the ability to place something to block signs. It generally just provides the ability to access for purposes of providing utilities.
This easement was for the future creation of a golf cart path for those outside the city to access our golf cart or our golf course.
Yeah.
It's not a utility easement.
Okay. I'm happy to look at it and give you my thoughts, but I need to look at it.
Brendan, you had, at one time had said that there might be a need for a survey of that.
Well, we
Find
have
the
a survey
pins.
of that property.
Okay, so we know where all the pins are.
We know where
We know-
our property is, we know where the easement is, we know where the state right of way is. And
Okay.
if you look, you can, because they're beginning work on that intersection right now,
Mm-hmm.
you can see where the state's already marked out what they know is their property.
Okay. Okay.
And I just want to be clear. So if there was an ordinance in place, the signs, the only way we could restrict a sign is if it was bigger than 36 feet, greater than 8 foot high, illuminated, or has any moving parts. Any other kinds of signs we still couldn't restrict.
Right.
Okay. Again, all of this was just for discussion purposes for those citizens who are concerned about these topics. It doesn't look like there's much we can do, but we have at least talked about it and shown concern over those signs.
And so it also means that my neighbor who complained to me that, yard signs started going up way too early. There's just nothing we can do about that. Sorry, ma'am. It's not, it's like we can't break the state law.
Right.
Because I was thinking, oh, okay, so we'll just make an ordinance that says, you can't place signs, further than 6 weeks out. So, sorry, ma'am, can't do it. Great, thank you. All right, so let's move on to item number 10. Discuss and take appropriate action on discontinuing the use of stop work signs placed in the yards of residents. Move toward a use of notification sent via certified mail or taped to the door, etc. So, Councilmember Hines.
So I would like to move that we discuss and take appropriate action on discontinuing the use of stop work signs and consider an alternative.
Seconded by Councilmember Grummert. Councilmember Hines.
Well, my concern here is that the stop work signs shame residents. They create a negative feeling towards city officials. The goal is to promote friendly customer service, encourage compliance, and help educate around code violations rather than shame into compliance. So it was my thinking that this specific procedure is kind of working counterproductive to our goal of just educating and getting people to make sure they've gotten their permits. So I was hoping we could reconsider that and look towards alternatives. For example, certified mail, posting a letter to the door, knocking on the door. The goal is to halt the work, get the permit, not to humiliate and harass.
So the action here is just direction to staff.
Yes, as to what they would maybe need an alternative. The reason I issued this is because we talked about this in a previous meeting,
right?
But it was established, well, you would need to direct us. So that to me indicates we need an agenda item. And
so is there anything in the IRC or any other code or any other place that requires the use of signage?
There, it is to issue some type of notice to stop work. Now, and we ran into problems with taping something to someone's door during the Brook Hollow project and other projects we've had, because people say, we never use that door. And then also certified mail, that's basically minimum of 14 days. So they could continue work during those 14 days till they receive notice. And if we can find the resident, it's easy to talk to them about it. And that's where, there's where that one difference is. If we see the resident, we knock on the door and talk to him, I can understand not trying to keep the contractor from working.
But are there times that you have,
or the property owner,
or the staff has been in contact with the resident, said you have to stop work, and still put the sign out in the yard?
We have, because that was the process, because a lot of the times the contractor will show up and the property owners never told them they had to do the stop work.
So I think that, to me, that's the breaking point. I mean, if we talk to them, they understand it. We give them the word, we can avoid putting the sign in the yard. We can't find the owner and we don't know the contractor. Then I think it would be appropriate to temporarily put a stop work sign, on the premises until we can talk to the owner or to the resident or whoever's doing the work, to keep the contractor from,
right,
give them the work.
And what we run into is that you might have one contractor that the resident has spoken to, but then there's another sub comes up that the contractor never told them that they needed to stop work, and they continue to work. So we're trying to make sure every person that could be performing the work at that property knows you have to stop.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. I think the IRC doesn't require, a metal sign with a
No.
big red stop work on it.
No, it
in the middle
doesn't,
of
but
somebody's
you've got to
yard.
notify.
Yeah, you have to notify them. There's got to be a way other than that. That seems to be our default position. As soon as there's something wrong, stick a sign on the yard that stays there for a long time. I've seen some stay up for months. It's irritating. I mean, there's got to be another way. I mean, sometimes we serve process by attaching it to someone's door, there's got to be a way to do it to where it's not that obnoxious and in accordance with the IRC.
The other concern I had here was if we're, these signs, if it's like for a safety concern or a major public hazard, all right, we put a sign up, we stop all the contractors. But if it's simply somebody hasn't paid their permit fees, I think there's a varying degree here where a stop work sign could be useful and important. But as far as just our go-to methodology, I really do think we should discontinue that. And
Yeah.
other cities don't do that.
Yeah,
I've-
I'm totally in support of that. But I also just want to make sure that staff realizes that, if there is no other resort, I mean, like Joe's on the road pretty much every day. If there's somebody that is in a stop work situation, he's going to be running by and noticing that. I mean, that's part of his job is to see, did somebody, I mean, if there's a stop work order in there and they pull it out, we're going to know. If there's work being done, when there's a stop work order or a stop work order given to the resident, I mean, there's no sign, and then all of a sudden work's being done. I mean, Joe's going to be there and he's going to take care of that, person to person, not just stop. But if it's like over and over and over again, and there's no other solution, I think that they should come to me and say, "Will you approve the use of a stop work?" And I go, "Okay, under the circumstances, sure." But or no, we haven't given enough chances. But I do think there needs to be that process in place that says that if we've tried everything, if we've tried all the customer service we can, and the only thing left is to put a sign in their yard, and that's an effective deterrent to the contractors, then I think we need to leave it on the table. So just taking it completely out of the question of using a sign, I'm not, I could be problematic down the road. So I don't want to. I mean, I did, but the process as it is, I think, does need to change.
Okay. I'll amend the wording, and I wanted to say that, like in Austin, they just tape it to your door.
Right.
And the longer you go without getting in compliance, the fees rack up.
Right.
Same with the county.
Right.
So,
That's a good process. That's what we should be doing. I mean, I'm saying, the sign in the yard, there's other things that we should be doing, and those are good ones, and that's how it should work. The sign in the yard, let's put the signs in the shed and forget they're there, until, it's like we've tried everything else, buddy, so red sign of shame.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how, I can amend the motion to say, discontinue the use of stop work sign unless approved by the mayor in a emergency scenario.
I mean, I'm okay with that, Brenton. That work?
It's up to y'all. I know it's going to be, because what we run into is that if it's on somebody is working on Sunday,
Mhm.
that is illegal. And and so there's so many scenarios that you want to try to address. And I want to say, yes, if we can find the property owner and say, you don't have a permit to do this work, I have no problem talking to them about that. But if you have a contractor working on a house and it's an absentee owner, and the contractor basically says, "No, I'm not going to stop," then and then
But they could do that if there was a stop work sign in the yard too.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But then we have evidence that it was given to him, because we take a photo of the signs, and when we take them to court, then it says, "Okay, you had a stop work order."
Yeah,
You can take a photo of it, just take to their door.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah. But the thing is, if it's a home being reconstructed or they're doing work without the property owner in the area, I have no problem contacting the property owner if they are there at the house and say, you got to stop the work. You got to, stop this. Actually, just tell your contractor shut down until you get your permit filed or whatever it takes. But when you have no contact with anybody besides you see a contractor there, that's where we start running into problems.
And I think that's what I'm saying is that if you got no other solution, then that's still an option that's on the table, but it's the last option on the table, not the first. And I think that what the complaints are is that it has been, it's like when, I'm not going to name any names, but some elderly resident comes home and finds her a stop work order sign in her yard.
And I know which ones you're talking about. But the thing is, we don't know who the resident is. We do not know who the property owner is because the property changed hands. The contractor was doing work, and there was no way to notify anybody. I know which one you're talking about.
I just want to reiterate what I've said already is that other cities in the county don't do that, and most work can continue unless there's a significant public health hazard, and you essentially just fine people. The work in theory shouldn't have to stop unless it's serious. Like let the work the communication is you're out of line with code or you haven't paid your fees, and that's what you're trying to address. Stopping somebody in the middle of their work day is, I'm just saying that's not necessarily necessary. And again, that's not how Austin does it. They just tape it to your door and walk away. If you lost it, he lost it. You just owe more money. And if you keep working, they don't do anything. That it's just you have to go file your stuff and turn in your paperwork, pay the back load of fees. I mean, I think that's a last case scenario that the sign is necessary. Because even if you can't necessarily get a hold of the homeowner, I mean, in how many of these cases is it like an emergency that we end the work?
Well, let me reiterate that. I know a lot of folks personally that got these things in their yard over very technical violations, but then they end up with one of those stupid signs in their yard. I mean, that should not be the default position. There's got to be easier ways to handle it. And these people are long-term residents. I can walk over there and ring their doorbell anytime I want to. To me, that was a particular person I'm thinking of. It was absurd. And so I'm with you on that. I think there ought to be maybe an escalating attempt to make sure they know to stop work. And if it gets really bad, then you put the sign of shame in their yard. It shouldn't be default position.
I think that's what we're saying.
So we've got an amendment. By discussing it, it's a technical second. But is there a second on the amendment?
One second.
Okay, so we need to vote on the amendment.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I missed that. So this is the amendment requiring the
Discontinue
mayor's.
use of the stop work signs unless approved by the mayor in emergency situation.
All right, so we'll vote on the amendment.
Okay, Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Councilmember Brisendine,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
No.
Councilmember Hines,
Aye.
Councilmember Brummer.
Nay.
All right, the amendment fails. So we'll take up the main motion on discontinuing the use of stop work signs placed and move towards the use of notifications sent via
It was just
other
alternative.
methods.
Councilmember Brisendine,
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Nay.
Councilmember Brummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Pulley,
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
The motion passes.
So I'm to understand they will not be used anymore?
The big red signs.
Yes,
Right.
at all, period. There's no option for them to be used.
The amendment.
Yeah, the amendment got voted down. All right, and we're about done. Item number 11 is just to discuss and take possible action on filling a vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission. We just need to, Radon Tilley, who was nominated for the position, has decided that he needs to withdraw from that position. And so we need to replace the regular member, and then we still have the alternate that we're looking for.
Mayor, may I?
Yes.
I move that we send out for more applications to fill the planning and zoning positions, vacancies.
I second.
And seconded by Councilmember Hines. Is there any discussion? No, we'll call for the vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBron? Aye. Councilmember Brizendine?
Aye.
Councilmember Brummer?
Aye.
Councilmember Hines?
Aye.
Councilmember Fuller?
All right.
Thank you very much. That's unanimous. I entertain a motion to adjourn,
My second.
and we are adjourned.
Yep.